Good morning, Anthony.
Good morning. How are you, Don?
Great. You got your coffee?
I would never go anywhere without it,
Super.
least of all here.
So, Anthony, I got this email from Chris Brogan the other day, and he mentioned that uh, you and he got together in Vegas, and you guys shared some coffee, and you were having a great conversation about coaching. And I thought it would be great to talk to you some more about that, and maybe see if we can understand, what is the importance of coaching in sales, and what's really the essence of it for our audiences.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to share some thoughts on that. It was nice to get a chance to meet Chris. We've been in a number of the same places and have met each other a couple times over the past few years, but I never really had a chance to sit down with him. And we had such a good time. We spent an hour and a half having coffee, and then we both found ourselves free later, so we ended up having dinner together. And a lot of the conversation that we had was about how do you get things done, talking about the worlds that we all play in now online. And a lot of it came to shortcuts, and I shared with him, I think he put it in his newsletter, that I use a bunch of coaches. I've got a cycling coach, I've got a writing coach, I've got an acting coach, and I've got an executive coach that I use for my business. And I think that coaching is a shortcut that allows you to take what other people know and apply it to your needs. And so it allows you to get results much faster than you could otherwise. They say in golf, a game that I hate, but a lot of people love, that you can't see your own swing. Well, you can't see your own swing in anything else either.
Yeah.
So a coach is somebody who can look at that and give you some idea of what you're doing and what might be changed to do better. So I think it's an important tool that more people should use. And I think his newsletter also mentions McKay, and McKay's got a half a dozen coaches.
Harvey McKay, yeah. Yeah, and when I think about that, what you just said is it's pretty important stuff, because there's a lot of things about ourselves that we can't see, right? I mean, other people see us differently than we see ourselves, and I don't know, I hesitate to call it lying to ourselves, but we convince ourselves of things that may not necessarily be true, just to cope with things, right? So we're not necessarily seeing the truth about ourselves a lot of times. In a coaching scenario, that's bad, because we could have serious issues that we're just kind of masking, right?
I'll share one little story about a lesson I learned from my cycling coach. So I was preparing to ride my bicycle across Death Valley, it's a 197 mile bike ride in the driest, deadest place on earth. They call it Death Valley for a reason, because everything there is dead, and except for one coyote and a tarantula, I didn't see anything alive other than cyclists. So as I was preparing, sometimes my schedule would get crazy and I wouldn't be able to get on the bike and exercise every day. But I would go out on Saturday, and instead of doing the 2 hours that was on my calendar, I would do 8 hours. And if I was supposed to do 6 on Sunday, I'd do another 8 on Sunday. And with a coach, you're giving somebody information about what you're doing and you're letting them see it. In this case, with the cycling coach, I was giving him a report that comes directly out of a power tap that monitors my power, my speed, my pedal cadence. And I would upload the file to him, and he called me and he said, "You had a good weekend, huh?" And I said, "Yeah, I got a lot of hours in." And he said, "There's no way to cram fitness, right?" And I said, I don't know what you're talking about." And he said, you miss time during the week, and you think you can make that time up on Saturday, but you can't make that time up. You have to ride 1 hour a day every day, and you can't ride 5 hours on Saturday and make up for what you missed during the week. And that lesson of not being able to cram fitness has been a powerful lesson for me. It was a powerful lesson for me then when I was riding the bike. And it's a more powerful lesson just generally about how we behave as humans. We think that we can make it up, we can cram. I talk about this around prospecting a lot on the sales blog. You think that you can go without prospecting and then make it up at some point in time, and you can't. You just have to do an hour a day. But the way that we think about things and the way that you really produce results are often different. And then having somebody point that out is very helpful.
Right. Yeah. One of the other things that I think you and I had talked about previously was this idea that for sales managers, the idea that things get managed, but people get coached. And can you talk a little bit about that? What your ideas were on that?
It's interesting because we need, as a manager or a leader, we need our people to hit their number, and you can talk about all kinds of things around that. But ultimately, the highest value creating activity that you can take as a manager or a leader is actually working on the asset that produces those results. And this is why coaching is just so powerful. That asset, the only asset that you really have to produce results in business is people. And coaching people allows you to have a relationship where you're working on making them more effective. And it's divorced from the number. And so this is the struggle that people have in the difference between management and coaching, is they know how to manage because they can ask you all the questions. Are you going to make your number? What do you need to do to make your number? How's that deal look? Share with me, where you are. Are you committed to that? Is it in the forecast? Ultimately you can ask the questions because the organization needs the information, but it doesn't help the one asset, that salesperson, produce a better result. So coaching allows you to go to the individual and say, what do we need to do to help you be more effective? And sometimes, I think you and I have spoken about this in the past too, sometimes you need to be directive and say, look, you can't cram fitness. That's a directive coaching. I need you to do some prospecting every day. But sometimes you can be non-directive and ask the person, what do you want to work on? What are the challenges that you're facing? And when we work on the individual and we help the individual get better and better and better and notch them up, then they automatically produce better results. And so I see, especially young and new sales managers, push their people really hard for numbers, when their efforts would be better placed on coaching them. And the coaching ultimately automatically results in better numbers because the individual gets better and more effective. But they spend too little time coaching and far too much time actually managing.
Yeah. Well, that makes good sense because, I always like to say having the right information does not always solve the problem. And we may have people telling us, this is what we need, this is what we need, this is what you need to be doing. But if we have no way to get there, right, then it's probably just more of a demotivational factor for us,
Yeah, maybe there's a belief that they have. When I shared with you this metaphor I use about cycling, I had a belief that I could make up the time on the weekend. And that belief wasn't true. And somebody else pointing out that, okay, you can continue to do that if you want, but when you go to ride your bike across Death Valley, you're not going to be prepared because what you're doing isn't going to work for you.
Yeah.
What you're doing in fitness doesn't work that way. And it's this belief that was underlying it. Sometimes people are taking the wrong action, and so I would ride my bike, as to use another metaphor, long distances, and I had a coach who said, you can do that if you want to, but ultimately you need to ride at a much faster pace some days and slower pace other days if you want that result, and you need to block your time this way. And so sometimes it's a belief, and sometimes it's we're taking the wrong action. And sometimes people just don't have the resources and they need to do the thinking about it. This is where a non-directive coaching approach is so valuable, where you ask enough questions that they have to think about it and answer their own questions. And so when you ask the question, what do you need to do to improve your sales results in this area of prospecting? And then shut up and don't tell them, look, I need you making more cold calls or I need you on the phone, but to listen and let them go through it in their mind. Well, this isn't working for me. What do I need to do? Allowing them to go through that process themselves is a powerful process. And it not only gets buy-in, which is why a lot of people like it, it allows them to identify the resourcefulness in themselves. They probably do have ideas. They probably know in their heart what they need to do. But coaching brings that out, and it's powerful in getting them to take action, to change their beliefs, to try new things, and to identify the resources within themselves.
Yeah. It's interesting, some of the reading that I've done about Deming, in the early days of TQM and all of that, in manufacturing, and they kind of use this model that they got from the Toyota production system that is being well, it's kind of dated now, but the idea was that they looked at the sensei in karate and said, what are these guys doing that works? And one of the things was that the sensei never gives answers. The sensei just asks questions until you arrive at your own answers. I mean, they give you directives, they give you the things that you're trying to accomplish, but they expect you to arrive at your own answers, which is kind of...
I practice a martial art called Aikido, and Aikido is a very difficult martial art. It's unlike any other because there's no attacks, there's no strikes. You're always being attacked, and then you're always redirecting energy by getting out of the way, which is another terrific metaphor. But it is 6 months of being on the mat. I couldn't stop myself from wanting to greet force with force, because that's what we humans that are filled with testosterone think we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I got no help for 6 months because the sensei knew you've got to come to your own realization that you're your own problem. And when you attack force with force, you end up in a fight. And if you get out of the way, you're not there when the force is there. But about 6 months, a light went on, and I thought, why didn't anybody tell me this? That all I had to do was get out of the way, or get out of my own way, for that matter. And they said, we've been trying to tell you that for 6 months. And yeah, we are in our own way. I think it's a valuable lesson. I think if you let people come to their own conclusion, they get there, even if they do it in a slower time than you would want them to.
Super. I mean, that sounds to me like that's really kind of the essence of coaching, right? Is helping people see themselves for what they really are, see their capabilities, see their weaknesses, and find a way to balance that with the knowledge that they have and the preconceived notions that they have, as you said, their beliefs, and how do they use that to modify their behavior for success, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So, one last question for you, Anthony. What do you think people ought to look for in a sales coach? Is there a character that we're looking for? Is there
that's a great question. I think they're looking for, first of all, a relationship that's built on trust. And my opinion on coaching, and I have a lot of coaches, is that you need somebody that you can work with. You need somebody that you trust. You need somebody that's really looking out for you and that cares about you getting the outcome. There are some coaches that care about a lot of other things, and some of them have. I mean, in the world of sales coaching, if you go outside of your own company, there are a lot of people who are really sales trainers that have a coaching component, but they walk you through 12 steps or 13 steps or whatever the case may be. But I think that what a coach does is they look at where you are and they help you find a path forward, and that path never ends. So a good coach you can keep for years, but only if you have a trust and a relationship and that foundation, like all good relationships, that allows you to get feedback from them in a way that allows you to improve. So it's feedback given in a way that you can take. I think when you and I spoke first, I told you about I have an executive coach, and a lot of people want to be non-directive and soft and encouraging, and I don't like that kind of coach. And I had to tell my executive coach, look, be completely directive with me. When I'm screwing something up, just say, you got it wrong and you need to rethink it. And that works perfect for me because I'm about speed, and if I'm doing it wrong, I don't want to waste the time learning that lesson over 12 weeks. I'd rather learn that lesson today. Some people are better at non-directive coaching, though. They're better when somebody asks them the questions and lets them come to their own conclusion, and they're defensive and they don't like that kind of direct feedback. I like direct feedback because I don't have any feelings that can be hurt. So it's easy for me to take, but harder for other people to take in a lot of ways. So I think you need somebody that's a good personality fit, but also somebody that you trust to have the resources to help you get the results that you want. So it should be somebody that's got experience, that's been where you're going, that's done what you need to do, that's got some depth of knowledge in that area. Like I wouldn't pick a cycling coach my cycling coach wins triathlons, and he wins half marathons. He's a very fast guy. But you want to go to somebody who's got some experience, that when they give you advice, you can know that that advice is based on two things: that it's coming from a good place and that it's about you, and two, that it comes from some experience that they're lending to this, so that you can take a shortcut and get where you're going faster. A good coach can help you not make all the mistakes that you need to really learn what you need to know to produce better results. So that's what I think you're looking for in a sales coach. I do some coaching. I also think, since we're talking about this, I'll leave you with this one other thought. I think as sales managers, we should learn coaching styles. We should learn directive and non-directive coaching and have a number of approaches. And we should get away from the numbers all the time and work on the individual and the asset. Who do you have to be a better salesperson? That question, who do you have to be, means that it's their responsibility to be better than they are. And you'll find, I think, as a sales manager, if you're watching this, that when you take that approach with people, the results that you get are so much better when it's not about what are you doing for the organization, but what are we doing to help you improve and get better. That people grow faster, they try harder, and their results improve much quicker than any other approach.
Makes good sense. So a good coach needs to be a kind of a good judge of character. They need to have industry knowledge, and they need to be able to really kind of get out of themselves and think about who this other person is and what it is that's really going on there, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Good stuff, Anthony. Well, I appreciate it, and I took a bunch of notes. I think I'm gonna have to sit and think about this for a while. But hey,
glad to share it.
Good stuff. Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks, Don. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.